Well, the latest move by Shivambu has raised questions about the state of opposition parties in the country. We're keen to hear your thoughts on this, of course. Do send us a WhatsApp on 072-110-5584 or give us a call on 010-594-6010. But for more on this conversation, we are joined by political analyst Professor Bheki Mngomezulu, as well as brand reputation management strategist Solly Moeng, joining us this evening. Solly, I will start with you. A good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I think there was some sort of anticipation, particularly after the remarks made by the leader of the MK party at that Youth Day commemoration, that something was certainly brewing where Floyd Shivambu is concerned. But what do you make of the messaging that we got from him? I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do in the future, the countrywide roadshow, if you will, but I'm staying inside the MK party.
Thank you, Naledi. Look, what he's saying is not different from Zuma saying he's not going to leave the African National Congress. I think he's learned a lot from Zuma. But we also know that he's trying to ensure that he has a relatively soft landing wherever he's going. Everything that he said today, or a lot of what he said today, is very clear that he's not staying with the MK party. I mean, his divorce from the MK party and Zuma is no different from Elon Musk and Trump. It was never going to last forever. That was never a marriage made in heaven, right? So it's going to be interesting to see which way he goes, because he's definitely not going to the EFF. And I'm not sure that there's any other party in the political landscape right now that has any, any appetite to have a Floyd Shivambu. It's too volatile, unpredictable. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not he manages to find that space, that need that is apparently not met by any of the existing political parties for him to try and meet.
Yeah, just talk to me about the point that you're making around the volatility issue, right? You say he's too volatile, and you've got him saying that he's going to embark on this roadshow and try and see if he can garner support. I mean, his time at the EFF, a very long and influential time within that party. The argument could be made, though, that he does have quite a strong following, still inside the EFF possibly, and even within the MK party.
Yeah, it's a good point. Look, what I'm saying is that he's a bull, and not a bully, a bull. And there's no way that, and the crawl that he was sharing with Malema was getting too small for both of them. And I didn't see him with all the potential or ambitious bulls in the MKP that he was going to survive for too long. They were going to eat him alive. They were beginning to eat him alive as things going by all indications. So I think he needs to create his own crawl where he's going to be the only bull. Otherwise, he'll never survive. And there's no way that any of the existing political parties can have somebody like him who has the political pedigree that he has, but also the very strong ambition to be the leader. I don't think he wants to follow anybody.
Yeah. Talk to me about what this does, though, for the MK party, if this strengthens the MK party, particularly even former President Jacob Zuma. I mean, on Monday, one of the things he talked about was we have had 7 secretary generals of this party going as far as to say, asngengi, we don't beg people to be loyal to the party. Is this a stronger MK party in a moment like this?
No, absolutely not. Look, the MK party, we all know, is a home for all the people, many of them who are, we are found wanting through state capture and other forms of corruption. And they're all concerned. They're not playing a very strong and a required opposition role in parliament. And they're supposed to be the main opposition party. They're very much concerned about almost the worms that are eating them from within. I don't think there's the sufficient political alignment within the MKP. It's just a refuge, it's a Trojan horse of all those people who are each one of them is in there for their own very personal reasons. So I don't see this party going, especially if Zuma leaves. I don't see the future for it, because you're going to see a lot of internecine battles. The daughter of Zuma and all these other people, faceless and faithful in the party, none of them has got the support that is sufficient to have everybody following them.
Yeah. He made some interesting claims, though, where he talked about how he believes that Zuma's advisors had been nicking money from the organization, in that, raising some of these issues within the MK party led to him being undermined by his fellow comrades. What do you make of that? And where you've got the president of the party saying that we act against misconduct, how would he need to react to those allegations?
Yeah, but the president of the party has been acting against corruption. Come on, look at the stuff that's hanging over his own head. Look, we're not anybody in South Africa who truly expect any order to come out from anything that's led by Jacob Zuma. After everything we know about Zuma, I think is losing their head or has already lost their head. There's not going to be any order. The MK party and Zuma is not there to solve South Africa's problems, to take care of this country that has been so pained for so long. So I think we need to look elsewhere for leadership of this country. The MK party is what it is. It exists. It came with excitement. We know that five months before the elections, without any policy proposals, it was really the excitement and the weaponization of apartheid pain and blackness that drove that party to where it's sloganeering. It's a party based on slogans. So I don't see, if we really want to think about serious, sustainable alternatives for this country, I don't think that leadership is going to come out of the MKP, especially if the NPA is going to be strengthened, hopefully one day, the criminal justice system, to start knocking on some of those doors of people lawbreakers, suspected lawbreakers who've been turned into lawmakers. So we shouldn't really, if we really want to see South Africa heal, it's not in the NKP that we're going to find the solutions. That's for sure.
He said quite a few explosive things, if you will, in that press briefing, right? I mean, one of them being that in the 10 months that he had been with the MK party, he had learned more. He said 6 months, I'd learned more from the president of the party, Jacob Zuma, than I did as deputy president of the EFF in a decade. Going as far as calling, the EFF a party that is run as a fiefdom, are those jabs that could possibly hurt the economic freedom fighters?
Well, look, if you look at the number of times the MKP has changed people, even parliamentarians, it was the first party to bring people into parliament, to throw them out, to replace them with other people. I think compared to the MKP, the EFF is fairly stable. Malema is the leader of whether people agree with him or not, he's held that position. He hasn't been challenged from within. Maybe Floyd was going to do that, but he didn't. And so it's very hard in terms of stability. I think EFF is a fairly stable country from a internal governance perspective. It seems to me it survived Floyd going away. A lot of people thought some of the people in the EFF were strong would go out and follow Floyd. It hasn't happened really. So it's really hard to compare the two parties. I think there's no stability that can be spoken about in terms of the MKP. I don't know what he learned from Zuma. Really, he still has to tell us exactly what it is that he learned from Zuma, because Zuma, it seems like he wakes up, he fires people, he wakes up, he hires somebody else depending on where his own interests are. And he's the power keg. He's the power keg inside the MKP. He's also the center of power. What Zuma says goes. It's absolutely clear. What Zuma goes. What Zuma says goes, and nobody really challenges him without immediate consequences.
Yeah. Well, we're hoping to also get Professor Bheki Mngomezulu to join us. Just some technical difficulties with him to be part of this discussion. But we're opening it up to you as well. Why don't you give us a call on 010-5946-010. Is the former SG of the MK party at a crossroads? He sits at a moment where he says he's never leaving the MK party, but he will be consulting various groups in different parts of the country to find out if he should form a political party. What is his best strategy in your view? Let's hear some of your thoughts. Jan is in Hammanskraal. Jan, good evening. Thanks for calling.
How are you, Naledi?
I'm well, sir. Talk to us.
The first mistake, the biggest blunder that Floyd Shivambu has made was to leave the EFF and join the MK on the spot. That's the first blunder. The second blunder is that for Floyd to think of opening his own political party, it's going to be 1% chance of succeed. The geopolitics in South Africa has changed to such an extent that there are many political parties as presently. So for Floyd to succeed in that, he will have to work very hard. The trust almost is gone in the people of South Africa on Floyd's stand on politics. The third point is that the MK party is not a political party; it's a family business. So that's my view on this, on the Floyd being the Secretary General and being fired in 10 months in MK party. So I don't think he will succeed on opening his own political party.
Right, Jan, thank you so much for giving us your contributions. Jan, not confident in the possibility or the success of a political party being formed by Floyd Shivambu. Tuba is calling in from Richards Bay. Tuba, good evening. Thanks for calling. What are your thoughts?
Yes, good evening. I don't think Floyd is all right about his decision. I'm not sure what he's thinking, or else he wants to end his political career in a very bad way. To open another political party, it's a very bad move for Floyd. I have so much respect for him. I thought he's a good guy. He knows why he came to MK. But it seems as if he came to MK to divide the MK, which is very bad for him. I think he must apologize and go back to MK and work there. Not like to open another political party. It's a very bad thing.
Okay, Tuba, your point heard. Thank you so much for calling in, Tuba, there in Richards Bay. We do have a Professor Bheki Mngomezulu now. We'll hear his views, not just on the MK party, but of course some news coming in this evening around how the UK is, of course, issuing alerts to the country that they are putting together a ban on Julius Malema. We're going to tackle that as well on the other side of this. Stay with us. Welcome back. We continue to get to your thoughts and certainly that of our panelists this evening on the moves being made by the former Secretary General of the MK Party, Floyd Shivambu. Also joining our discussion now, Professor Bheki Mngomezulu. Prof, thank you so much for making time for us. Some technical glitches there, but I'm keen to hear your thoughts. You know, just as we started the discussion, Solly made the point that, well, this is very similar to the sort of, I suppose, move that we saw from Jacob Zuma himself, not leaving the ANC at this point. I mean, are you making that same comparison where Shivambu says, I'm going to decide what I'm doing in the future, but I'm not leaving the MK party?
Yeah, good evening, my sister, and good evening to your viewers, and good evening to my colleague there. Honestly speaking, there are a couple of issues that bear relevance to what has happened before. The first one is what we have just hinted on, where he says that he remains a member of the MK party and he will never leave the MK party, while at the same time saying that he's starting a consultative process with many South Africans, going to the extent of saying that next week they are going to put a team in place that is going to do the job. So there is one issue that bears resonance with what has happened before. But then also, secondly, if you look at what happened with Herman Mashaba, with what happened with Mus Maimane, they also started in the same way, saying that they were starting a consultative process, not necessarily forming a new political party. And before we knew it, they had political parties, and those political parties are now in existence. So we can almost tell that it's a foregone conclusion that Floyd Shivambu is determined to form a party. It's just that it's just working out the modalities as to how he's going to go about doing that.
Do you think he'd be successful? Does he have the following that is necessary to have a political party that could rival some of the bigger political players in the 2026 local government elections, for instance, or further than that?
Let's get two things straight, my sister. The first one is that Floyd Shivambu is a smart guy. But then in terms of following, I don't think so. Number two, it's always the case that when you form a new political party, we are most likely going to draw support from a wide range of people who will be joining you for different reasons. A case in point is what happened with COPE. A number of people joined COPE, and some people were saying that it was going to dismantle the ANC. I am on record saying that it's not going to happen that way. And indeed, history proved me right, because they got 30 seats in their first outing, but then come the next election, they were left with only 3 seats. So which means there are people who join a political party just because they hope to achieve something, more especially positions, because if it's a new political party, I stand a better chance of getting a position than I would in my old party. So on that score, then I would say that if we were to form a new political party, chances are he will have a following, but then he won't be able to sustain that political party, given the fact that the foundation will be weak, and therefore it is going to die a natural death.
There is, of course, the question around what this move does for the strength of 2 parties now. The MK party and certainly the economic freedom fighters. He's had some strong points to make around the EFF. I've learned more within the MK party than I did in a decade in the EFF. The EFF talking about just how centralized Julius Malema's power is. Does that put a dent at all on these 2 parties? And what do they need to do and say, if at all?
You are absolutely right, my sister. There are a couple of things that Shivambu said which don't sit well with people who are not even members of the EFF nor members of the MK party. One point is that he said they took a decision within the EFF that they have an issue with the leader of the party, that is Julius Malema. He went to an extent of saying that some of the current leadership of the EFF are in fact the people he agreed with that Julius Malema was not leading the party well. The question then is, what does it do to their political image? What does it do to Julius Malema's political image? And most importantly, what does it do to the relations between him and the membership, and then of course him and those leaders? So those are a couple of questions in as far as the EFF is concerned. Then coming to the MK party, he was asked a pointed question, if indeed the MK party is an ethnic or tribalist party. His answer was an emphatic no. He said, no, that is not the case. But then he went on to say that in his consultative process, the party that they are going to form is a party that is not going to be tribalistic. It's not a party that is going to be based in a region or a province, but it's a party that will be inclusive of all South Africans. Basically confusing himself on the first point he had made when he said the MK party is not a tribalistic party or an ethnic party. So there were a number of things that he got wrong. I think, in my view, this media briefing was convened prematurely. He should have just given himself time, because he's a smart guy. I will always say that. He's a smart guy. But he should have given himself time to think about this, so that by the time he goes to the public, then he'll come with a solid thing to say, not what happened, singing in different tunes, being watched by the entire globe.
I want to look at another issue now, and I think it speaks to also just what's happening in other parties that are in the opposition. Solly, I'll bring you in, and perhaps what we need to do is find the right wording, perhaps the wording of, you know, the EFF leader, Julius Malema, being banned by the UK, perhaps too strong. But this is the letter that the EFF posted, having received from the UK Home Office, essentially denying Malema his visa application, going on to say, I'm going to read briefly from the summary here. Your presence in the UK has been assessed as not conducive to the public good on grounds of your conduct, character and associations. Accordingly, I refuse you entry clearance to the UK. For above reasons, I have therefore refused your application because I'm not satisfied that you meet all the requirements of the relevant UK immigration rules. But what this letter essentially does is it lists some of the comments that have been made by Julius Malema on various platforms. I mean, at some point talking about how he's gone on social media platforms and talked about taking up arms, for instance. I mean, what do you make of that? This issue of how the UK is now looking at Julius Malema, especially after how he came up in the Oval Office in that all-important turn the lights down low meeting, right? This moment of reflection for Julius Malema this evening, Solly.
Hi, Naledi. Yeah, thanks. Look, I'm not too surprised by the UK. It's just a pity that in the global system, there's a lot of hypocrisy. We all know that, decisions are made on some people or some regions of the part of the world that are not made on other regions of the world. But I think that moment in the Oval Office placed Malema, and you saw the songs and some of the stuff that is really harsh that he said on white people. I think one shouldn't be surprised that the UK, which is an ally of the US, would have taken that steps, and I wouldn't be surprised if other countries follow suit over time. I really can't defend. I'm not in a position to defend somebody who makes such racial threats, at people. I think that hopefully he will learn that it's probably there's a different way to do politics, especially just even in South Africa. I think we in South Africa have to have a conversation about what kind of things we should tolerate in our political sphere and what kind of things we shouldn't, in terms of mindful of the constitution and the kind of country that we're trying to build. I don't think that people should thrive on racial attacks and insults like that. So I really don't have any sympathy for Malema from that perspective.
Prof, what do you make of this? This letter from the UK Home Office saying, I'm reading just a bit of it now. Under the Terrorism Act of 2000, the Home Secretary may prescribe to any organization if they believe it is concerned in terrorism, and it is proportionate to do so. Then prescription makes it a criminal offense to, among others, invite support for a prescribed organization or express an opinion of belief. Then they note the Hamas prescription was extended to 2021. His comments on that. And so much more, right? I mean, this moment for Julius Malema, particularly on the global stage.
There are a couple of issues here. First of all, every country has a right to decide who to give a visa to or who not to. We apply for visas. We get them for different reasons. Some people don't get visas for different reasons. So every country has a right to do that. But the reasons that are provided, and some of which we've just read in that letter, are neither here nor there for me. Because you are talking about a political party. Malema is not a political party. He's a leader of a political party. We are not inviting the party. So focus on the individual. Then the second point is that when did Malema start making these comments? Did he start now after the Oval Office saga, or has he been making these statements before? If the answer is that he has been making these statements before, what has changed now? Is it because of the geopolitics, or is it because the UK is being fair in saying that we don't want people of Malema's caliber? So that is something that needs to be clarified. But as a principle, every country has a right to decide who to give a visa to, who not to. So on that score, I fully agree with Soli. But in terms of the statements and the utterances that Malema has made, it's not something new. So we shouldn't be surprised. Why now? Why are we concerned now? And why have we not been concerned in the past? Is it because of Trump, or is it because of other reasons? So those are the questions that we need to attend.
Yeah. Well, let's take some calls now. Emmanuel is calling in from Velcom. Emmanuel, good evening. Thanks for calling.
Hello.
Hi, Emmanuel. You're live. Thanks for calling. Talk to us.
Yes, I wanted to comment on this issue of Floyd, man.
Yes, go ahead. We're listening to you, Emmanuel.
Yeah, man, this thing is basically from Limpopo. If you can look at all the political leaders here, they have got a strong ground from their home ground. If you can look at Julius Malema, he's strong at the shoe. If you can look at Jacob Zuma, he's very strong there. But this guy, he doesn't have any way whereby it's his strong ground. So I think the problem is now he's just desperate for a job because he doesn't have any. And then he made blunder by joining Zuma. That he have been swearing at Zuma ever since the formation of the EFF. So you can tell that that relationship was not going to last. But now he's just trying his luck. Even if he can try to have a political party, he's not going to have supporters because people can't trust him. He has been doing the very same thing that he was accusing Julius of. Number one, today he lied. He said it needs a lot of people to form a political party. But at some gathering, he lied and said it was him alone who formed the EFF. You see. So you cannot trust that type of person. So I think this guy just needs a job somewhere, or he can. And you see, he was looking for people to fund that party because the VBS is closed.
Okay.
You know, so he's in trouble with this guy.
Okay, Emmanuel, thank you so much for calling in. I guess we wait to see what the future holds for the former SG of the MK party. Let's take a look at some of the WhatsApps that have come in this evening. Tamba from Kempton Park says, good evening, Naledi. I think Floyd knows exactly what he's doing. He learned from the best that you don't have to resign before embarking on a new organization. Okay, interesting, Tamba. T-Man says, Mr. Shivambu needs to apologize and go back to EFF. I don't see him surviving if he opens his own party. All right, T-Man, thank you for that. Peter Tetwa, Nelspate says, evening, Naledi. I think Floyd is actually regretting joining MKP, but his ego would not allow him to speak out publicly. Zuma cannot justifiably expel him since he will not resign. Zuma has done the same with the ANC. Okay. Alex in Centurion says, evening, Floyd Shivambu miscalculated his move. He made a blunder by joining the so-called MKP. May his political career rest in peace. Alex, colorful words there. And Simpiwe in Port Elizabeth says, good evening, Naledi. Thank you so much for a great show as always. Thank you so much, Simpiwe. Floyd Shivambu, his credibility is questionable and narcissistic. Certainly an interesting time to be, watching South African politics. But thank you so much to our panelists. Soli Moeng, of course, is a reputation strategist, as well as Professor Begi Ngomezulu, the political analyst. You can keep your thoughts coming in, though, on X at Newzroom 405. We take a short break. We are back in a moment.